Good morning, warriors. Fernando here, God's prepared warrior, and welcome to Friday. We made it to Friday. Man, I don't know about you, but I feel like the days are just flying by, right? It's getting crazy out there. Time is flying on us. Today, I want to talk to you guys about this simple thing, right? It's a question. Are you ready for the next health crisis? Over the last few years, our world has learned something important, right? It doesn't take much to disrupt everyday life, right? I mean, pandemics, outbreaks, viruses, even public fear, change the way, can change society overnight, right? And now, with concerns surrounding, illnesses like the Hantavirus, just making the headlines again, God's prepared warriors need to think beyond some of the stuff that we already do, right? We need to think about, health preparedness, right? It's important for you to have a plan, right? You're gonna hear that from me all the time. And in this plan, hopefully, you have a plan for medical. You have a plan for when things like this happen, because we're gonna need to respond to that, right? And so we need to have a health preparedness plan, right? We should always remember, when we hear these things happening in the headlines, we're not to panic, right? We don't panic. That's not what we do. Preparedness is not fear. Preparedness is wisdom, right? And so, most people wait until the sickness is already spreading before they actually even start thinking about medical supplies, sanitation, and just protecting their family. And that's true because I remember back in 2020 when the vid happened, right? No, I didn't think about, medical, things, right? It wasn't in my repertoire, right? And so, all of a sudden everybody started buying the masks, right? And they started running out of the masks. And then, they started people started making masks. And so, I bought a mask that was handmade with my favorite football team. And so, I remember that. And I didn't have a thought in my mind about having any kind of medical kit. Yeah, a first aid kit for, cuts and scrapes and things like that, but never something in depth, right? And so a prepared warrior thinks ahead, right? And now looking back, I have those things in place, right? Because I don't want to get caught without it, right? So what should we be doing, right? I think first of all, we should build a practical medical kit, not just, a first aid kit that has Band-Aids and maybe some Neosporin in it, because that's how I used to roll, right? I mean, that was the extent of my, first aid kit. So we need to think in layers, right? Your home medical prep should include thermometers. You should have, some kind of fever reducers, pain relievers, electrolyte powders. Most of this stuff I have in my get home bag that I carry with me. You should have some kind of cough medicine or cough drops, right? Gloves, some kind of latex gloves, disinfectants, hand sanitizer, your vitamins, right? I carry all that stuff in my lunchbox. Maybe you carry, an N95 mask, right? You just never know. You might need that, right? Basic first aid supplies, right? Maybe you carry a prescription backup plan if you need that, right? You should also have ways to isolate sickness inside your home if someone becomes ill, right? Preparedness. I mean, if anything, COVID should have taught us that, right? Preparedness also means understanding hygiene. And this is something important, right? That maybe we learned in 2020, which was washing your hands, right? Keeping your living areas clean, right? Maybe we store extra soap. Maybe we store extra cleaning supplies. Maybe we actually learn how diseases spread, right? That's building a medical kit of knowledge, right? Maybe it's us going far into it and saying, I want to learn how to stop the bleed, right? Things like that. With the hantavirus, specifically, rodents and their droppings are often connected to this transmission, right? And that means that preparedness includes sealing all of your food properly, right? Keeping your storage areas clean, right? Eliminating rodent access points, and then safely, just cleaning the contaminated areas. A prepared warrior pays attention to their environment, right, and everything that's around them, right? But we have to go deeper, right, than the physical preparedness, right? Health crisis can also attack people mentally and spiritually, right? Fear spreads faster than a virus sometimes. Let's be honest, right? And that's why spiritual preparedness also matters in this instance, right? In uncertain times, we have to stay calm. We have to, stay informed. We have to pray, and we have to bring God into the middle of what's happening around us, right? We have to avoid panic, and we need to help others whenever you can, right? That's what God has called us to do. And we have to be a voice of wisdom instead of voice of fear, right? You will always hear me tell you about 2 Timothy 1:7, right? For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but love, power, and a sound mind, right? That sound mind matters. It's important, right? A sound mind makes wise decisions. A sound mind prepares ahead of time, right? A sound mind, stays steady when others panic. And that's important. This is why we have to know God's word. We have to put it not just here in our brain, but in our hearts so that it flows out, right? And so remember this, preparedness is not just about surviving. It's about being able to protect. It's about being able to serve others. It's about being able to lead your family and lead your community during difficult times. And so, it's important for us to go beyond, right? Sometimes we need to go beyond. We need to go beyond, the normal first aid kit, the bandages and Neosporin, right? We need to go beyond that. We need to, learn some new things. We need to, expand our mind, right? The next crisis may not look like the last one. We have to think about that. But God's prepared warriors stay ready physically, mentally, and spiritually. So don't forget, stay vigilant and stay prepared. And guys, I want you to have a great Friday. No matter what's happening, trust in the Lord, and He will get you through it. Have a great weekend. Hope to see you on the next video, guys, and God bless.